Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned the truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahushai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahushai. And pretty much the hot topic of the week, really the month, is you have the Genesis camp. That's a split off group that pretty much they used to teach what Sakari teaches, but now they're going way left. Why? Because of their pride. You know, the scriptures say pride go before destruction. So when you got the mindset that you think being in this truth is a competition, when you look at your other fellow peers and brothers and even friends, you know, your fellow comrades, what the scriptures call members, as, you know, you above them in the sense of I know more than you. You know, you can never come close to what I know in this knowledge. Then the Most High, He just gonna make you an open example on what not to be. Now, concerning so-called Brother Assad and so-called priest, whatever the hell his name is, Hakah, I think that's what he'd go by now. They're pretty much teaching that the 17 heathen nations, the natural Gentiles, that they can have inheritance with the children of Israel, and they can also receive salvation, and that's not biblical. See, the thing is, let me turn this TV down. As well as 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're going to be destroyed here in Babylon the Great, which is America, which the scriptures call the lake of fire. All right, the remaining heathen nations, we read Amos 9 and 12, which includes the Edomites, they're going to go into slavery. It's just that simple. So let's get into it. So what you're going to realize is when the heathen nations was in the promised land of Israel, they defiled the land, all right? And us wanting to be like them, put our people in a Gentile mindset, and ultimately cause the Most High to reject all the seed of Israel. When you read 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, it said that the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel. Meaning what? He kicked out the 12 tribes of Israel, beginning with the Lord's 10 tribes, and then the southern kingdom, which represents Judah, Benjamin, Levi, was amongst all the tribes, but Judah, Benjamin, and Levi out the land after the northern kingdom, right? So that's what it means when he rejected. That don't mean that, you know, he stopped dealing with us because we have Yahushua. He's dealing with us through Yahushua, beginning with the elect. So when you read the scriptures, when the heathen nations was in the land, they defiled the land with their pagan practices. So I just want to read this a little bit. This is our First Maccabees, chapter 15, and verse 33. Because when you read the scriptures, the mixed multitude, which is the heathen nations that followed us when we left the land of Egypt, they didn't make it to the promised land. All right? I'm going to get into that as well. First Maccabees 15 and 33. Then answered Simon and said unto him, we have neither taken other men's land, right? Because that's against the law, statutes, and commandments, right? We didn't take other men's land. We didn't take their inheritance because that's the inheritance that the Most High gave them, all right? It says, nor holdeth that which appointeth to others, but the inheritance of our fathers, which is the promised land of Israel. In which, when you read Genesis, the 15th chapter, which is one of my favorite chapters, by the way, if you don't know, you know, the promised land of Israel gives you the borders on how big it is. All you got to do is just go to Google Images and type in the promised land of Israel, and you'll see how big the borders is, how far it stretches out. And one of the reasons why we went to war with the Philistines so much is because they kept overstepping our border, All right. Anyways, it says the inheritance of our fathers with an S, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the fathers of the promise. So if you don't come from the seed of the promise, which is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, you don't have any part in our inheritance, because the Lord gave every seed line or every nation on the planet Earth their inheritance, which is their land masses to live in. It just so happened that after 1,000 years of hardcore slavery, the Edomites' land is going to belong to the children of Judah. It's going to belong to the children of Israel. When you read Numbers, the 24th chapter, Obadiah, the 1st chapter, and plenty of others. All right? That go into the Amalekites or the Edomites being completely exterminated. Deuteronomy 25 and 19. And you know, when you watch my videos and you see I be quoting scriptures, these are scriptures that I always meditate on. That's why I'm able to memorize it like that, you know? It's not about being a walking encyclopedia. It's about what I'm meditating on. So that's what I'm meditating on. Deuteronomy 25 and 19. You know, Obadiah, the 1st chapter, it tells you that the Edomites, they're not going to be given any sign of mercy from the Most High for what they did to the children of Israel and ultimately the planet Earth. It says, but the inheritance of our fathers, which our enemies, who's our enemies, the 17 heathen nations, right? And ultimately on this side, before the new covenant is fully established, 2/3 of the nation of Israel that you read about in Zechariah 13 and 8, they're our enemies because they're enemies to the cross, because they want to fulfill the agendas of the heathens, mainly the Edomites, which is that New World Order 2030 agenda that I've been talking about for years already, right? It says, which our enemies have wrongfully in possession in a certain time. So all throughout history, you had the heathen nations, when they was in the promised land of Israel, what did they do? Did they keep the law, statutes, and commandments? Even though the Most High put the Spirit on particular priests to show them and keep them, you know, keep the law, statutes, and commandments, did they continue on that path? No. They kept their own pagan, idolatrous, fornicating customs. All right? There's no way the heathen nations can be in the promised land of Israel, because how would it be an everlasting kingdom if the scriptures say flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom? The heathen nations is flesh and blood. They cannot inherit the kingdom. It's just that damn simple. All right? It says, wherefore we have an opportunity hold the inheritance of our fathers, which is what? Our culture, the law, statutes, and commandments, but ultimately the promised land of Israel. Now, let's read a little bit of the backstory of 1 Maccabees 15, right? It says, 1 Maccabees, the 15th chapter, and the reason why I'm reading this is because I didn't get to read the whole thing. It says, details a letter from Antiochus to the Jewish high priest. It says Jewish, but we know it's talking about Israelites, right? It says, in the Ethanarch Simeon, right? Which, let me actually go into that word. I don't want to skip over that, right? Let's look that up. Okay, Ethanarch. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. The ruler of a nation or people, all right? So this was the leader, Simon, which officially recognizes Simon's authority, grants tax exemptions, and permits the Jews to mint their own coins. The chapter also describes a diplomatic mission by the Jews to Rome and a subsequent angry reaction from the king after his envoy, it says, Antinous, right? Let me see if it's going to give me a little explanation on this individual. May have to read the actual chapter. Yeah. So if you read 1 Maccabees, the 15th chapter or the chapter before, it's going to go into this individual. You know, Lord willing, one day I'll go into it. It says, witnesses Simon's prosperity and power, leading to the king's preparing a military campaign against Judea. All right? So the chapter is going into King Antiochus' letter to Simon. All right? So you can pause the screen, you can read that. The main point I wanted out of that is the heathens had our land in their possession, and they wrongfully had it in possession at particular times through the will of the Most High, but they didn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments, just like the Edomites now. They don't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. They don't keep the Sabbath, right? But then you got particular Israelites that have low self-esteem. They'll say, oh, well, you know, the Amalekites, which is the Edomites, the so-called white man in Zebulon, oh, they keep the laws better than us. They keep high holy days better than us. You sound stupid saying that, all right? They don't keep the fucking laws better than us. They're pagans. So now, that's the point that I wanted, all right? So when they had possession of our land, it was given over to idolatry, fornication, paganism. You think the Most High gonna allow that in the kingdom of heaven? Now let's deal with the mixed multitude. And the reason why I'm bringing this out is because the heathen nations, they're not gonna be dwelling in our inheritance. The only way they was allowed to besiege us and take us down is when we broke the old covenant, which is the law, statutes, and commandments. All right, the law, statutes, and commandments pursuant to Deuteronomy, the 9th chapter, Exodus 12 and 38. Because you got a lot of people, they like to use these pathetic weak points to try and justify salvation to the 17 heathen nations. And that's not biblical. The Lord didn't even allow the mixed multitude to make it to the promised land. Exodus 12 and 38. And the mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle, right? Because when we left out of Egypt, it said that we spoiled the Egyptians. We got the gold, silver, you know, the cattle, whatever the Lord allow us to have, as you're reading right here, right? And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, right? It was not leavened, meaning that the bread didn't rise and it have yeast in it. It was like flat, like a tortilla, right? It says, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Let's read that in the NLT version real quick. Exodus 12 and 38 NLT version, right? The New Living Translation version. It says, a rabble of non-Israelites went with them. Who's are them? The Israelites. So the scriptures is making a distinction between the chosen and the non-chosen. The seed of the promise and the non-seed of the promise, right? Along with great flocks and herds of livestock. So people will read this and be like, oh, well, you know, the Lord, yeah, he destroyed Egypt, but he allowed the mixed multitude to travel with the Israelites. But wait a minute. What about Leviticus, the 24th chapter, about the Israelitish woman, all right, whose mother was a Danite and the father was an Egyptian? How come the Lord killed that individual? And then what about this example I'm about to read here, all right? The Lord is not with heathens being in our promised land. Israel's problem is that we always want to be like the heathen. The Lord gave us the Levitical priesthood at that specific time, according to the old system. What did Israel want? A king. So because our people wanted to follow the way of the heathen, they preferred to keep the heathen pagan customs and believe on pagan philosophies, which goes into fornication and idolatry. The Lord said, you know what? I'm going to give you into the hand of the heathen. Your children is going to grow up like them. They're going to speak like them. And this is why you had particular men like Nehemiah that was pissed the hell off, all right? When you read Nehemiah, the 13th chapter. Because that's always been our downfall, following the way of the heathen. Even the smartest man on earth at his specific time that lived, that was his downfall, following the way of the heathen, his concubine wives. But when he got up in old age, referring to King Solomon, NLT, it says 39. For bread, they bake flat cakes, right? Flat. It was unleavened. Like we have that for the Passover. We'll have the Passover, and then we'll have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? It says from the dough without yeast, right? So when you read the NLT version, you know, most of the time it's just going to simplify what it was saying, like the Hebrew or the Greek, all right? Not every time, but I'll say like over 60%. NLT, Exodus 12 and 39. For bread, they bake flat cakes, unleavened. It gave you the definition. from the dough without yeast, is give you the definition what unleavened bread is. They had brought from Egypt. It was made without yeast because the people were driven out of Egypt in such a hurry, right? Haste. That's why when we have the Passover, we eat in haste because we was fleeing Egypt, right? You had the plagues of Egypt that was going on, in which the Most High, he did those plagues of Egypt to mock those Egyptian gods, all right? Because they're no gods, as the Lord says in Psalms 96 and 5. It says, to the Lord he mocked them. You got to remember, all thought and inspiration come from the Most High. What you act out in real time, that's the Most High's thought and how he predestined your life. So that's no different than the philosophies and the customs that any individual keep. But mainly I'm referring to the heathens, all right? So the heathens, they got humbled all throughout history, realizing that what? Their gods didn't exist. Only our God exists. That's what his name means. Yahweh, he exists, he to be, he is. It says it was made without yeast because the people were driven out of Egypt in such a hurry, they had no time to prepare the bread or other food. So when we have the Passover, we eat in haste, right? It says the people of Israel had lived in Egypt for 430 years. That's how long we was in captivity for. All right, so it's going to go into the Passover. Let me see if I kind of skipped up. Right. I mean, that's pretty much the point. Let me see. I mean, if you go on to like read this story, the mixed multitude, they didn't make it to the promised land. Because remember, all that generation ended up dying anyway. All right? So the mixed multitude, they didn't make it to the promised land. That's the point. That's really what I wanted out of that. But let's read this right here. So I typed in and I messed up on the spelling. It says, what happened to the mixed multitude? Did they make it to the promised land? Right? AI overview. The mixed multitude did not make it to the promised land as a distant group. Of course not. Because they don't fucking belong to be there. Yeah, you want to follow us. You want to worship our God. You want to keep our customs. But you're not a part of the seed of promise. You're doing all that in vain. It says they were absorbed into the Israelite tribes, which is bullshit, all right? And see, this is why you got to watch out for this AI overview, all right? These scholars with their dumbass commentaries, you got to watch out for shit like that. Because if the apostles to the Holy Spirit, for an example, all right, Alexander's 4 generals, Lysimachus, Cassander, Seleucus, and Ptolemy, Esau will tell you it ain't Lysimachus, it's Antigonus. We gotta go with Apostle Tahar. We can't fucking go with a damn commentary, right? That's my point on that, through faith. So let me see. Yep. It says let me keep going. It says through intermarriage, but not before many of them perish in the wilderness. Exactly. They not gonna make it to the promised land because they not the seed of the promise. It says, particularly after the golden calf incident, the Bible does not track them as a separate people, but the descendants of those who remain were assimilated into Israel. That don't make any sense, because nations is established by seed. That's why I brought up Leviticus 24:10 about the Israelitish woman, all right, who father was an Egyptian, making her a heathen, and her mother was a Danite, all right? We already know about the tribe of Dan, how they was given into idolatry. That's why they're not a damn tribe no more. You know? It goes on to say, taking on the customs and identity of their new nation. That's bullshit. Let's go down here. It says, what happened to the mixed multitude? Perish in the wilderness. Many members of the mixed multitude died during the 40 years of wandering, especially during the plagues. That's great. It says, some interpretations suggest the mixed multitude identified, Esau with his Yiddish, whatever the hell that is, were the primary instigators of the golden calf incident. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true, but, the scriptures don't go into it, so I don't really want to say too much, but yeah, you could use extrapolation and possibly say that. All right, but even after this incident, you had Israelites that continue on this wicked custom of the golden calf. All right, in Samaria, when you read just through the scripture, Judges, the book of First Kings, the 12th chapter, right? It says, and as a result, many of them died in the ensuing punishment. It says, all right, let's see. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. All right, the point is they didn't make it to the promised land. This is Nehemiah chapter 13 and verse 1, and it says, foreigners excluded. It says, on that day, they, which is the Israelites, read in the book of Moses, right? The first 5 books is known as the books of Moses, right? In the audience of the people, so they was reading the Torah and the ancient Paleo-Hebrew to the people, because that's our original language. This is the language that they were speaking back then, all right? Remember the prophets, they was walking around, they had scrolls. They didn't have what we have right now, Bibles in English or at this specific time, Greek, Latin. That didn't exist yet, all right? We have these things because, we're more conquered. So we got to be able to understand these scriptures in the tongue we speak. It says, in the audience of the people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come. So they was reading Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter in Paleo-Hebrew, all right? It says, should not come into the congregation of the Most High forever. There you go. Even when you read the story about Achior the Ammonite, he was an Israelite that was dwelling amongst the Ammonites in the Assyrian army. That's it. Ain't no contradiction in the scriptures, but there's stumbling blocks. Because you'll read this, you'll go to Deuteronomy 23rd chapter, you'll read the story in Judith, the 5th and the 14th chapter, about Achior the Ammonite, which Achior, his name in the Hebrew, it means brother of light. And you'll be like, oh, well, the Most High just made an exception for him. The Most High, he's not a hypocrite. He's not a man that he should lie, all right? Brother of light, meaning what? He had faith, and he did have faith. That's why he got circumcised, and he was joined unto the Israelites. Continuing on, it says, because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, right? We read about that in the scriptures, I believe Numbers, if I'm not mistaken, that he should curse them, howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Now it came to pass, when they heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Why was they separated? Because they don't have no part in our inheritance. Look, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're called the fathers of the promise for a reason. The 12 tribes of Israel, they're called the seed of the promise for a reason. When you read these scriptures, it's separating, it's variance between the seed of the promise, all right, which is one nation made up of 12 tribes, right, and the mixed multitude, which is heathens that wanted to follow us, but they can't be us because they don't come from our seed line. That's what y'all not understanding. It don't matter if a heathen want to follow our customs and be like us, they still going to be rejected. That's what the whole story of the woman, the Samaritan woman, all right, at the well, when you read St. John, the 4th chapter, you got to understand these things. She said, our fathers worship in this mountain, right? But obviously she didn't know the history because she was born generations after the real seed of the promise was kicked out. When you read 2 Kings 17. So she don't got a damn clue of what's going on. She's convinced in her mind that she's an Israelite, but she's not. She's a heathen in our land. So when you read in this, our forefathers, the prophets and the true worshipers, they knew the difference between Israel and the heathen, all right? All the mixed multitude is who? Heathens. So that's the point with that. Let's keep it going. Oh, the kingdom of heaven. Revelation 21. And I believe the point is in verse 12, right? start at 10. Revelation 21:10. The headline, meaning the subject of the next couple of verses, is New Jerusalem. Meaning what? Beginning with the elect, the Israelites that receive salvation, is stepping into that new covenant first. Because to receive salvation, you're being delivered from destruction, all right, by the way of the so-called UFOs and chariots of Israel through Yahweh's blood and sacrifice, ultimately going back to predestination, the will of the Father. He already handpicked who's going to be chosen and non-chosen before the earth was created. Now, the Israelites that's a part of the elect of the nation of Israel, we are stepping into the new covenant first, which involves us being perfected. And that's why it's an everlasting kingdom, because the people that's ruling within the everlasting kingdom is immortal. You can't be living in the parameters of Israel, all right, if you're not immortal. If you can't keep the laws, statutes, and commandments perfectly, being a part of the seed of the promise. The heathen nations is flesh and blood. Like, are y'all dumb? It says flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of the Most High. The heathens is flesh and blood. Revelation 21:10. It says, and he carried me away. This is John, he's explaining his vision of the future, which is getting ready to happen. And he carried, Revelation 21:10, the word revelation, it means the revealing, right? What was revealed unto John the Revelator on the island of Patmos, end time prophecies, right? And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a people before it was a place descending out of heaven from the Most High. Linking up with what? Revelation 18:4, Isaiah 26:20. Come my people down to thy chambers, which is the ships, the spaceships, because you're going to have nuclear destruction going on, nuclear wind going on, right? Then, when the time is right, according to the Most High's time and will, we're going to descend out of them ships, and the heathens is going into captivity. It's just that simple. It says, having the glory of the Most High, and her light was like unto a stone, most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates. And at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Why the fuck is the heathen nations not mentioned here? Because they don't have no part in our inheritance. It's that simple. I'm tired of hearing videos like that. The heathen nation, they can have part in our inheritance. God's telling you that they can keep the laws perfectly, or make it seem like we ignorant and unlearned men. But here you are proclaiming to the world that you perfect, y'all don't sin, and now y'all going against your law by trying to add heathens in our inheritance. There's no way you could do videos like this. I mean, you can, but ain't no way you could really do videos like this without cursing at these people, because the ignorance is extreme. It says, on the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the land, the 12 disciples, right? So, I mean, that's pretty much the point. The point is, this is only made for the Israelites. Ain't nothing to explain. So that's it with that. Now, what happens when the heathen nations is in our land? Did they keep the law? Hell no. This is 2 Kings 17:7. It goes into why Israel fell. It says, for so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh their God. The word Lord is a cap, so it's talking about Yahweh, which had brought them out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods and walked in the statutes of the heathen. This has been our downfall since day one, all right? Whom the Lord, right, Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly things that were not right against Yahweh their God, and they built them high places in their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. Everything I'm reading is things that heathens naturally do. And when they got in the promised land, they was doing these customs, all right? We went off because we supposed to be keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, and we're above the heathen. Verse 10, and they set them up images and groves in every high hill, under every green tree, and there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen, whom Yahweh carried away from before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke Yahweh to anger. Scriptures tell you Yahweh is a jealous God. All right. For they serve idols, whereof Yahweh has said unto them, right, by the prophets, Luke 1:70, ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah. Why does it say that? 1 Kings 11 chapter, when King Solomon got old, the Lord took the kingdom from him by dividing the tribes. So a certain amount of tribes went with Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which was a real evil, wicked individual. You know, the lost 10 tribes, which is the Hispanic and Latino and Indian tribes, went with Jeroboam. He purposely made them sin, right? And then you had Judah and Benjamin and Levi that went with Rehoboam, which Rehoboam was actually Solomon's son. Jeroboam wasn't, all right? Rehoboam took the stead. It goes on to say, yep, about all the prophets and about all the seers. Before they was called prophets, they were called seers. Read 1 Samuel 9:9, saying, turn ye from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your fathers. He ain't commanded heathen to keep no law and to be in the promised land. This is strictly for us, at which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks like to the neck of their fathers, that they did not believe in Yahweh their God, and they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he had made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom Yahweh had charged them that they should not do like unto them. It says, and they left all the commandments of Yahweh their God, and made them molten images, and even 2 calves. Here we go again, right? Them fucking calves again. And made a grove, and worshiped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. So yeah, it is a possibility that in the wilderness, the mixed multitude, they was encouraging, you know, that wickedness of the golden calf. But regardless, all throughout multiple chapters, the children of Israel is guilty for, you know, constantly sinning with this damn calf. All right, because you got multiple different generations where they was doing this damn practice. Whether they learned it from the heathen or not, that's one thing, but they're guilty for actually doing it, playing out the action. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, right? And use divination and enchantments. This is all the shit the heathen naturally do. And sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahweh to provoke him to anger. Therefore, Yahweh was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight, which is the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Right? They will go on to go into captivity under the Assyrians, and then come to the other side of the world, which was known as ASSHUR, which Cristobal Colon, he read 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, and he knew the type of people he was going to come across. That's why he brought Luis D. Torres with him. All right? A Hebrew speaking interpreter. Because what language was Latinos before they would call that shit? What language was they speaking before they was known as Latinos and the different Indian tribes, Hispanic, right? They were speaking Paleo Hebrew. That's why you got the Las Lunas stone, the Bat Creek stone, the Newark dialogue stones, right? The King Joseph tablet. It says, there was none left but the tribe of Judah only, southern kingdom. Also Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh their God, but walk in the statutes of Israel which they made, doing the same dumb shit. And Yahweh rejected all the seed of Israel, all 12 tribes, get the hell out the land, right? And afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers. Who's the spoilers? The 17 heathen nations, until he had casted them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following Yahweh and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did, and they departed not from them. Right? Because they started to keep some of these evil practices when they got to the other side of the world. When you read 2nd Ezra 13, 40 through 46. They did try to keep the laws, all right, but they incorporated paganism with the law. Bloodbath ritual, that ain't no fucking custom of ours. It says, until Yahweh remove Israel out of his sight, as he has said by all his servants the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. There you go. Now, what happens when the heathen is in our land? Cities of Israel filled with strangers, right? It says, and the king of Assyria brought men, heathens, right, from Babylon and from Qatar and from Ava and from Hamath and from Saravam, and placed them in the cities of Samaria. This is why the Lord said, don't go to Samaria, right? And to be called a Samaritan, that shit was an insult, instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. Let's see what they did in the land, right? And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there, they feared not Yahweh, therefore Yahweh set lions among them. The heathens don't fear Yahweh. This is what the hell they do when they in the promised land, all right? Sent lions among them, which slew some of them. So the lions was devouring them. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria, referring to the heathens, who got removed? The 12 tribes. It says, know not the man of the Most High of the land. They don't know the man of the Most High in the land. All right? How the fuck they gonna be a part of our inheritance? You think they gonna be in the kingdom of heaven doing this shit? Like, these niggas are dumb, teaching this shit. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, it says they slay them because they know not the manner of the Most High of the land. They don't fucking know the manner of the Most High because they was never given the law. Like, these dudes are so stupid teaching this shit. What? Look, when you read Galatians 4 and 5, the purpose of Yahweh's blood of sacrifice was to redeem them that was under the law. The heathens was never given a law. All right? The only time they was allowed to be in the promised land is when they besieged us, and the Lord put the spirit on particular heathen kings with status to put heathens in the land. The examples we have in the scriptures of when the heathens is in the land, they defile the fucking land. Now you got these stupid ass niggas in 2025 talking about the heathens, they're gonna have a part in our inheritance. What, to do this shit again? Like, come on, man, y'all retarded. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, carry to the one of the priests. So this is what they did. They don't know the man of the Most High. They don't know the law, statutes, and commandments. So the king of Assyria, which I believe this would be Shalmaneser the fifth, he commanded, saying, carry to the, or it could be the fourth, carry to the one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, right? So take one of the Levitical priests and teach the heathens how to live and keep the law, and let him teach them the manner of the Most High of the land. Why? Because they were never given the law. They don't know the judgments of the Most High. They don't know why lions is coming to devour their ass. It says 28. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel and taught them how they should fear Yahweh, right? Teaching them the law, statutes, and commandments. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own. So here you have a fucking example of the king of Assyria actually bringing priests, bringing Israelites to teach the heathens that's in our land. And what do these pagans do? Howbeit every nation, meaning all the heathen nations that the king of Assyria placed in the land of Israel, made gods of their own. Are y'all dead ass? Like, are y'all serious? You really think the heathen nation is gonna be in the land? Like, this shit is stupid, what they teaching. The Genesis camp. Anybody that's teaching this shit, they don't know the scriptures. And put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans have made, every nation in the cities wherein they dwell. These motherfuckers, they said, look, we're not following Yahweh. We're gonna believe in our philosophies. We're gonna keep our culture, which is paganism and witchcraft. This is what the hell they did in the promised land. And you guys think that they're gonna be in the promised land keeping the laws? Like, get the hell out of here. We're gonna have to beat that shit into them. Isaiah 16:12. It says, and the men of Babylon, hold on, let's put this in the NLT, these crazy ass names. 2 Kings 17:30. It says, those from Babylon worship idols of their god, Succoth, Banath. Those from Kathah, these are all the heathens that was placed in the land of Israel by the king of Assyria, right? Which, by the way, happened in multiple generations. You can also read about it in Ezra, the 4th chapter. It says, Ezra, the 4th chapter. Those from Kathah worship their god, Nergal, and those from Hamath worship Ashima. The Avites worship their gods, Nibhaz and Tartak, and the people from Saravam even burnt their own children as sacrifices because they worship Molech to their gods. I'm not even pronouncing that shit, all right? But you see the two gods that they worship. These new residents worship the Lord, but they also appointed from among themselves all sorts of people as priests to offer sacrifices at their places of worship. And though they have worshipped the Lord, they continue to follow their own gods. I'm going to read it again. 2 Kings 17:33. And though they worship Yahweh, they continue to follow their own God. This is what the fuck they're going to do if they get in the promised land again. This is why they're not going to be living there. All right? According to the religious customs of the nations from which they came. And this is still going on today. Like, damn. They continue to follow their former practices instead of truly worshiping Yahweh and obeying the decrees, regulations, instructions, and commands he gave the descendants of Jacob, whose name he changed to Israel. For the Lord had made a covenant with the descendants of Jacob and commanded them, do not worship any other gods or bow before them or serve them or offer sacrifices to them. But worship only the Lord who brought you out of Egypt with great strength and a powerful arm. Bow down to him alone and offer sacrifices only to him. I don't even got to read no more. I'm talking about some heathen nations in our land. Y'all retarded teaching this shit. Ezekiel 36:1. Here's another example. You got the Edomites that's in the land. All right? They in there because of the Balfour Declaration and ultimately through the will of the Most High end-time prophecy, because they're the last heathen nation to rule. 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, verse 9. Daniel, the 2nd chapter, the revived Roman Empire, the 10 toes, right? It says the mountains of Israel to be blessed. It says, also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, ye mountains of Israel, hear ye the word of Yahweh. Right? Because you hear the word of Yahweh through an Israelite man. You read Deuteronomy 18, the Lord said, what? I'm going to raise up a prophet from the seed of thy brethren. So that's how you hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, because the enemy, who's our enemy? Amalek, the Edomites, all 17 of the heathen nations. Because the enemy have said against you, aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Look at the commercials. Oh, come to Jerusalem. Got a fucking train going through that shit. Right? Slut walks. They follow in the Babylonian Talmud. All type of pagan evil practices is going on. Wailing wall. Which one of our forefathers had a fucking wailing wall praying on that shit? Come on, man. Even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Yeah. And then they open up the land as like a big ass museum. Right? And they laughing at us. Therefore prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, because they have made you, the real Israelites, desolate and swallowed you up, all the different slave trades, right? All their rules and regulations. They oppress us with the centralized system. They weaponize our women against us in the form of feminism, not giving us equal job opportunities, so forth and so on, right? We in a credit-based system. We're debt slaves, right? We got this board of education, which prepares you for the workforce. I could go on and on with this shit. It says it swallowed you up on every side. It don't even matter what part of the world you in. That ye might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen. And ye are taken up in the lips of talkers. The heathens, they laugh at us, all right? And are an infamy of the people, right? We everybody's joke. We the laughing stock of the world because we're in the bottom. Deuteronomy 20:37. Thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among the people. Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear ye the word of Yahweh. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh. To the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, and to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and a derision, to the residue of the heathen that are round about, all them different generations, but ultimately referring to the Edomites under the Balfour Declaration. Here the kicker. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, surely, that's a vow, he's swearing on himself, surely, in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea. Idumea is the Greek way of saying Edom. You go into the NLT, it's going to say Edom. It says, which have appointed my land into their possession. The Lord ain't with the heathens having part of that possession. That's why I read 1 Maccabees 15. You could understand the frustration of our forefathers, all right? The ones that actually had sense. Anytime the heathen nations had our land, they defiled it. They can't fucking keep the law. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. Which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful mind. This is what the fuck they do when they in our land. They defile it to cast it out for a prey. This is what's going to happen. This is what Iran and Russia is going to do. Prophesied therefore concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen. How did that happen? Because they keeping their pagan practices there, all right? Doing witchcraft, doing shit that go against the law, statutes, and commandments. Why? Because it's not in them. They don't know the manner of the Most High. How the hell how are they going to be grafted in and amalgamated with us? They wasn't there from the beginning. Two totally different spirits. So that's it with that. Now, I mentioned the Balfour Declaration, but ultimately, this idea to set up a Jewish state, it really go back to this guy, which his dream, it became true under the Balfour Declaration. But this individual right here, Theodore Herzl, I did a video on him in the past. It says, Theodore Herzl's dream was to establish a Jewish state to solve anti-Semitism and create a homeland for Jewish people, Edomites. His vision detailed in his book, The Jewish State, was to create a modern European-style state recognized by international law. This ain't biblical, but it is, all right, when you read Ezekiel 36th chapter. He tirelessly campaigned to make his vision a reality, organizing the first Zionist Congress in 1897 and leading the movement until his death in 1904. His efforts laid the foundation of the establishment of the State of Israel, which was declared 50 years later. All right, this shit originally started as his dream, as you can see here. You can just pause and read it if you want to read it. I already know what it's going to say. All right? Let's keep it going. I'm almost done. Oh, here we go. 1 Corinthians 15 and 50. Now, this I say, brethren. Paul is talking to the Israelites that's within Corinth, Greece. All his letters is addressed like that. That's why, look, let's turn the Strong's on. Since people don't have common sense. Paul, he just gonna call anybody brethren. Let's go into this word brethren. Strong's G80, right?
Strong's G80, Adelphos. Adelphos.
Go down here. Yep. A brother whether born of the same two parents or only of the same father or mother. Having the same nationality ancestor. Paul, he's from the tribe of Benjamin, right? Belonging to the same people or countrymen. So when he says brethren, church, saints, he's referring to his kinsmen according to the flesh. Who are who? Israelites. Romans the 9th chapter, right? It says, yes, that's pretty much it. It says that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of the Most High. The heathens can't inherit the kingdom of the Most High because they're always going to be flesh and blood. The new covenant promises, the blessings in general, it never pertain to them. It says, neither do of corruption inherit incorruption. There you go. The heathens is corruption. How the fuck are they going to inherit incorruption? It's unbelievable, the stupidity. Here's some more new covenant scripture, the Davidic kingdom. Ezekiel 37-24. And David, my servant, shall be king over them. Who's the them? The Israelites, right? Because if you could receive it, it's Peter. It says that they all shall have one shepherd. They shall walk in my judgments, something that the heathen can't do because they don't know the manner of the Most High, and observe my statutes and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. Your fathers have dwelt, not the heathen. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, not the heathen children, and their children, and their children's, and children, forever. It didn't say nothing about the heathen. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them, not the heathens. Them, the seed of the promise. It shall be an everlasting kingdom with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. The fuck, man? Y'all know what y'all reading? This is Hebrews 8 and let's see. 8 and 7, for if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. The law is perfect, we're not, right? Till we change, referring to the Israelites. For finding fault with them, the Israelites, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, right? Tabernacle of David consists of all 12 tribes. You read Revelation 7, it's only going into the 12 tribes. Even when you read verses 9 and 10, it's still dealing with verse 4. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, not the heathen fathers, the Israelite fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the prophets, the kings, their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, save the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, save the Lord. They didn't say nothing about heathens. This is the new covenant. It says, I will put my laws into their mind, because the Lord going to take away the stony heart, which is rebellion and sin, and write them in their hearts, right? The new bodies we get is going to be programmed to be perfect, keep the law perfect. That's why it's going to be an everlasting kingdom, because we're going to be able to keep the law perfect. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. All right? I mean, y'all get the point. Daniel 7:27, one of my favorites. In the kingdom and dominion, right? The domain of the kings. The Lord said we're going to be a nation of kings and priests through YASHARAHLA, blood and sacrifice. And the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven. Like, read this shit. Like, not shit, but like, y'all so damn stupid, it's crazy. Read this. Daniel 7:27. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven. It's the whole inhabited planet Earth. Who's it going to be given to? Whose inheritance is this? Shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Who's the saints of the Most High? Psalms 140, 13 and 14, right? Of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. Why? Because Yahweh promises immortality. And all dominions, the heathen nations, flesh and blood, corruptible, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. I could just drop the mic on y'all, all right? And that goes back to what? Isaiah 16:12. The nation that will not serve thee is going to perish. I'll read it. Isaiah 16:12. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish, yet those nations shall be utterly wasted. We'll finish it off with this, Romans 9. Romans 9:3, for I could wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach, from my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, right? You gotta be an Israelite according to the flesh. There ain't no such thing as no spiritual Israelite. To whom pertaineth, meaning this is what belongs to us, the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of the Most High, and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Hamashiach came, who is over all, the Most High blessed. Let me read that again. Who is over all, the Most High, blessed forever. Amen. That's pretty much the point. Lord willing, you was edified. Shalom.